14th.
Well, gents, what do you think?
Do you want this hidden, or it's okay?
However you're most comfortable. I'm just going to perch my arm on mine, so. Well, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. I want to dive into the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Yes.
You are a member of that.
I am.
Tell me about the commission first off.
The commission is a fabulous group of 12 individuals who represent Republicans, Democrats, and those who are neither Republican nor Democrat. So it is evenly divided, and it is a group of 12 people who come from an original applicant pool of about 300 people who feel so passionately about redistricting in our state that they wanted to be a part of this, to show that there is a way that you can really create fair maps in the state with people who really have no direct interest or conflict with the maps that get drawn.
I think people's eyes glaze over when they hear redistricting and they say, oh, that's so boring. Why do I care about that? That's in some niche thing I don't need to concern myself with. Why does this concern everybody in the state?
It really does. And I go, oh no, I think actually people are incredibly passionate about this. And the reason is that we have all lived now through 10 years of what it means to have a state that was not really fairly drawn in the last mapping. And we've all experienced what it's like to not have our vote count. And so as the Citizens Redistricting Commission held public hearings around the state, we would have more than 100 people come out for every single one of those in 9 congressional districts. And we heard people tell us all kinds of stories about how their communities, their neighborhoods, even their streets were torn asunder with the ways that the maps had been drawn the last time, and how their votes didn't count, and how their children were deciding to move out of the state because they just felt like it wasn't a state where their voice was heard.
So they were leaving because they didn't feel that
Right.
their vote mattered here.
Yeah, and that is, as someone who's very much involved in economic development in our state and realizing how important it is that we attract great talent to our state, that was an issue that particularly resonated with me.
Let me ask you this. I brought some of the maps here, the current maps,
Yeah.
the Indiana House legislative districts. Take a look at that. Tell me, you think, describe those for me. Fundamentally unfair the way they're written now, do you think?
So what the legislature did the last time was they really focused on one primary criteria, and that was compactness. And there is a value to that so that legislators don't have to crisscross the state to represent an area.
Sure.
The other things that are absolutely required are that our maps are roughly proportional in terms of the population that they represent. Although in the state maps, unlike the congressional districts, there's leeway in that. So, but that's important. And then it's also important that they do not violate what is racial gerrymandering. So taking people of a race and particularly placing them in one district or another. And that is a violation at the federal level. So they all come to adhere to that, or to the letter of the law in that area. But what the United States Constitution does not prohibit is political gerrymandering.
Okay.
So that happens, and there was a huge effort 10 years ago, really across the country, to say, how can we get more of our party, particularly in that time for the Republican Party across the country, to really control state legislatures. And then whoever controls the legislature gets to be in the position to draw the next maps and the next maps and the next maps, really in perpetuity.
Right.
And it's not, although there was a major Republican effort, and I'm a Republican,
well, right.
so that just really hurts me that was done. But there also were places in the United States where the Democrats did the same thing. And here in Indiana, when the Democrats were in control, they did the same thing, which is really the whole heart of this, which is that the people who are in control, drawing the maps from which they will run their races, is clearly a conflict of interest. And so that's the whole point behind your original question about what is the Indiana Citizens Redistricting Commission. It's to be made up of citizens who are not running for office and do not have that conflict.
So, according to the commission, how do you see things? How should things operate here? You're going to have a group of people who aren't running for office,
Right.
who would then redraw the lines based on the census data.
Well, and we're not actually drawing the lines.
Right, you're not.
Yes.
You're not, yeah.
So what we are doing is we are the host of a citizens mapping competition, which allows any citizen in the state of Indiana to get online and to draw maps and enter them in a competition. We have great cash prizes for the maps that are drawn.
We'll put the website
And-
on the screen right now so people at home can see it. But so the idea here is that I could draw maps
Yes,
and submit them.
please do.
And then what? And then what?
So after the maps are drawn, we're going to be measuring those drawn maps against criteria, which is established in the competition. And then we will take the winning maps and we will present them to the legislature. And before they vote on the final maps, we're hoping that they'll use our maps as the maps they choose to submit to Governor Holcomb.
Do you think they'll give you a fair shake on that? Do you think they'll really consider it?
Well, I held a breakfast for our Northeast Indiana legislators last week, along with other members of the commission and the League of Women Voters. And I really do believe that our legislators are fair-minded. And here's the thing that particularly heartens me. I believe that even a party in majority, like mine happens to be right now, is made up of individuals who recognize the importance of democracy. And I am so concerned about the fact that we have so many people who just believe that the federal government doesn't function, and they're terribly suspicious of it. And they don't trust our elections. They don't believe that there's integrity in elections. And they don't trust the media. And so we end up with all of the major structure that really is our democracy and in question at the moment. And we have got to structurally fix that. So one of the ways we fix that is to have elections where people go, that's fair. One vote counts as one vote. My vote counts. Nobody's pulling any shenanigans. And in elections, it's called packing or cracking a district so that my vote won't count. And people believe that's been happening because it has. They all have examples of it. And we want that not to happen this time around. And I believe that our fair-minded legislators are going to agree with me that none of us want to have this time in history looked back in another 10 years or 20 years from now and for people to say those weren't fair and those were the people who were part of that. None of us want that. So I'm really hopeful that we've got fair-minded legislators who are going to try and make these maps really fair.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm thrilled to. Thank you. Thanks for what you're doing.
Sure.